this is Reflection Relay, and by the way, this is the best event. My name is Ruth Cummins, and I've been involved in Science Olympiad for 29 years, and I have done Reflection Relay for 29 years. It's changed over the years. This year, we do have a big change. How many of you coached Reflection Relay in the past? Okay, so for you people, because part one is the same as it has been in the past few years, I'm going to explain part two first. And for those of you that don't want to stick around and listen to part one, then you can just leave and I won't be offended. But, so I'm going to go over the new event, the new part of the event first. All right, you should already have a copy of the rules. If you don't have a copy of the rules, you can get them on the MacombSO.org website. And pretty much everything that I'm saying, most of what I'm saying today is going to be right on that website here, okay, right on those rules. Really, there are only two things that your kids need to know about light. And the first thing they need to know is that light travels in a straight line. Everything we're going to be doing with Reflection Relay will have light traveling in a straight line. And what are you going to do to get that beam of light to go where you want it to go? The other thing that the kids need to know about the properties of light is that when light is reflected off of a mirror, the angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. And what that means is, if you have a protractor that looks like this, and this protractor has 0 in the center, instead of having to go from 0 to 180, it's got 0 in the center, and it goes to 90 degrees on this side and 90 degrees on that side. So the angle of incidence, if the beam of light is coming in at 40 degrees and you have a mirror right here, then it will reflect off of the mirror and come back out at 40 degrees on the other side. That's basically what your kids need to know about the reflection of light, okay? And we're going to use those two principles for both part one and part two of Reflection Relay. Now, in both parts, the object of Reflection Relay is to reflect that beam of light off of some mirrors and hit a target. I'm going to explain part two first. This is the new part. Last year we had a paper and pencil test. We got rid of the paper and pencil test and we replaced it with this. We have your kids will get started with a piece of paper, which is 1.5 feet by 3 feet long. That's in the rules. You don't really need to write it down. It's right in the rules. 1.5 feet by 3 feet. Your team owns that piece of paper. So they can do whatever they want to that paper. Now, they're not going to be able to move the paper because we're going to have their paper taped down. They're not going to be able to move the paper. But if they want to write on the paper, if they want to tape on the paper, if whatever it is they want to do to that piece of paper, it is theirs to do that. They just can't move the paper. Because on that paper, we are going to have a laser beam that you see right here. Now, this laser, we just purchased it at Harbor Freight. It was like $5 or something like $5 or $6, something like that. And there's nothing special about that laser. If you have other lasers around the house, like we had this one around our house, this would work just fine. So you don't have to go out and buy a new laser. This my husband had for, I don't know, something to do with some kind of construction thing he does. I don't know anything. I put it in my classroom and I line up the words on my bulletin boards with it. But it makes a line, as you can see up there. It's not a point of light, it makes a line. And that's what this one does too. So you don't have to go out and buy one of these if you already have one in your house. They do have kits, at least they did earlier today. They had kits for sale where you could buy the laser and 4 blocks of wood, 5 blocks of wood. 4 of the blocks of wood will have a mirror already attached to it. 1 block of wood will have your target on there. Now, the mirrors were all, I cut all the mirrors, I sanded all the edges so that there's no sharp edges. I mean, you can do this too. We're not in this for, you know, you have to go and buy our kits. We have the kits there as a convenience to you if you choose to buy them. We have lots and lots of blocks of wood that have all been meticulously sanded down so there's no sharp edges. So that's what the kit is that's available in the hallway over there. So you'll have all of this. Something I do want to show you though is the target. The target is divided into sections. The center 2 inches has a score of -2, which will make sense in just a minute. The outer 2 sections have a score of -1, and then obviously if you don't hit the target at all, you don't get any points at all. And we'll explain why that's a negative number here in a minute. So we'll put the laser down. The kids will not be able to move the laser. We'll put the target down. They will not be able to move the target. The only thing that they can move are the mirrors, okay? And they get to choose. There'll be 4 mirrors total, and they'll have 5 minutes to figure out where to place those mirrors in order to get that laser beam to go from the laser beam to the target. They have 4 mirrors. They don't have to use all 4 mirrors. Obviously, if they use all 4 mirrors, they'll get a better score because it's a -1 point for every mirror that they use. But if in 5 minutes, if they can only set up 2 mirrors and hit the target, that's better than trying to set up 4 mirrors and, you know, not having enough time to get it done. So they should figure out how many mirrors can they get done in 5 minutes. Now, you as a coach need to give them a head start line. As you can see right here, I have a 6-inch head start line, and this is in the rules. You'll have a 6-inch head start line. And the way I did this, and what you'll need to do as a coach, is I just put a block of wood out there. I turned on the laser, and then I just took a ruler and gave them a 6-inch head start line so that they can see where exactly that beam of light is headed, okay? So you will need to do that. That will be done before your team comes to into the reflection relay room. They will already have that done. But while they're working on this, we will turn off the beam of light. So they have to be able to do this without the beam of light turned on. Now they can bring with them anything that they think is necessary, with the exception of a light source. They can't bring in another laser and set it there and do it. So their teams in the past have brought in string and tape, where, you know, they can tape lines right on this paper. I've had kids bring in rulers and pencils. I've had kids bring in sticks. I've had kids bring in, although mine are a little bent up, they brought in wires. Whatever it is they need to do to figure out what that beam of light, the path that beam of light is going to take. So they set up their, and again, working with 5 minutes, they really are going to have to work as a team. And they're going to have to make sure that everybody knows what their job is, because 5 minutes isn't much time. And they, you know, and once the 5 minutes is up, it's going to be hands off, and we will score whatever they got done when we said hands off. All right, so assuming that they have a technique, they know what they're going to do. I'm just going to kind of set these up. I'm not going to do any measuring right now, so if it's not right, that's my disclaimer. So they're going to set it up and, you know, set this one up here at some angle here, and then they will probably, you know, put another one maybe over here, and maybe they'll decide to put another one over here, and then they'll put another one maybe right here, okay? And again, hopefully they will do measuring and not just plunk it down just like I did just now. So the 5 minutes is up, and by the way, there's no advantage to being done before 5 minutes. There's, you know, it doesn't help you at all. You might as well use your whole 5 minutes and make sure that you get it exactly in the right spot. So, time is up, hands off, and then the event supervisor will come up and will turn on the beam of light. And I can see, could you turn off, is it all right if I turn off the lights for a second? Could you turn off the lights just for a second, please? And I can see here that I have hit one mirror. The beam of light has hit one mirror, so that would be a -1. But now I can see it's gone off into space there. So this particular setup would only be worth a -1. Okay, now I'm gonna cheat. Kids can't do this. But I'm going to pretend that I really did measure all these things. There we go. All right, so I measured them exactly. And the beam of light hits this mirror, there's -1. It hit this mirror, that's -2. It hit, I think there's a mirror over here, that was -3. It hit this mirror, that's a -4. And it hit the center of the target, which is a -2. So they hit all 4 mirrors and hit the center. They get a -6 points for doing this, okay? If they didn't use all 4 mirrors, we wouldn't count that as part of their score. So obviously in reflection relay, we want to get as small a score as possible. And this is one way to reduce your score, is by hitting all of your mirrors and hitting your target. Okay? Want to get the lights again, please? All right, so the range of possible scores would be a deduction of either 0 if they didn't hit anything, to a -6 if they hit all 4 mirrors and hit the target. All right, now, as a coach, oh, and by the way,
Hit the center of the target.
what's that?
Hit the center of the target. It would be -6.
If they hit the center of the
outer
target.
edges, then it's only -5.
Right.
So, you know, so.
Yeah, exactly right. If they hit the center 2 inches of the target, that would be a -4 plus a -2, that'd be a -6. If they hit the edge of the target here, that would be a -4 and only a -1, so they'd only get -5 here. And if they hit 3 mirrors and completely miss this mirror and somehow get the target anyway, we count anything they hit. So whatever mirrors they hit, we'll count it as a -1, and wherever they hit it on the target, we'll count that too. Okay? So they do not have to use all 4 mirrors, but it certainly is to their advantage if they do. Now, as a coach, what I was going to say is, it is possible that there could be a barrier put in the middle somewhere. So they might have to work around the barrier as they're working through this, okay? So, as a coach though, you may want to start out with no barriers, no time limits, just let them try to figure out how to get that beam of light on the 4 mirrors and hit the target. You start out with 1 mirror, and then start out with 2 mirrors, and then work their way to 3 mirrors as they get more comfortable. Once they're pretty comfortable getting 4 mirrors and hitting the center of the target, then you may want to start to put some time pressure on them, because you have to get that down to 5 minutes or less. And once they get comfortable with that, you may want to add in a barrier. So, you're starting out easy, and by the time you get to a tournament, you should have worked your way up to something like this. Okay? All right, before I go to part 1, do we have any questions on this part?
When you were saying measuring, you mean with a protractor?
They could.
Just check. Okay. They're
Yeah.
allowed to bring those in?
Yes, they
obviously.
can bring
Okay.
anything with them, with the exception of a light source. So whatever they want to bring with them. Now, on the MacOMSO.org website, I don't have it yet, but I will have lots of different sized protractors for you that you can print out, and it has 0 in the center. Now, some people run it off just on white paper. Some people prefer to run it off on transparent plastic. So, whatever works best for your team. And it's not on the website quite yet, but within a week or so, we'll get this up. Any other questions on part 1?
2.
Part two.
So
Part
the
two.
kids bring in their own mirrors with them?
Good question. No, they have to use my mirrors right here. These mirrors are 3 inches by 5 inches, which is exactly the same size mirrors you'll be using for the part one. And I've had, in the past, I've had people bring in a 12-inch by 12-inch mirror to try to use it, and they were really upset when they couldn't use their mirrors. You have to use my mirrors.
I just heard you talking earlier, you're gonna put this on a pegboard, and those are gonna be stationary, obviously the laser and the
Right,
last one.
you as a coach, you don't have to worry about putting yours on pegboard, but for our tournament, I'm going to have a piece of pegboard underneath here, and the laser will have some pegs on it. We're gonna peg it down so it can't be moved, and the target's gonna have some pegs on the bottom, and we'll push it down into the pegboard so it can't be moved. So, and it just makes it, and then we can make it exactly the same for all teams. They're gonna be exactly pegged into the same holes for each team. Okay, any other questions on part two?
Will there only be one obstruction?
I don't think the rules say a certain number of obstructions, so I am thinking, no, I could go crazy if I wanted to, but I have to admit, for this first year, I probably won't go too crazy, but watch out next year. Okay, so yeah, I don't think it says anything, it says plural.
There may be unmovable barriers. There may be.
So there might not
Yeah,
be.
so it's plural, barriers with an S, so it's possible. Yeah. Okay,
So if you reflect, the more mirrors you reflect off of, the better your score is. If you-
That's right. That's right.
Only one target position, or you have a couple of different?
There's only one target position for this part, yes. Okay, so for those of you that were just here because you wanted to see the new part, that's it. So my feelings won't be hurt if you get up and leave. But I'm gonna move on to part one, and this has been the same in the past few years. That has not changed. In part one of reflection relay, it's basically the same thing. You're reflecting a beam of light off of 4 mirrors in order to hit a target. Now, I know you only have 3 kids, but one of the mirrors is going to be permanently mounted onto the wall. And it may be right at the same height as your flashlight, or it may be a little higher than your flashlight, or it may be a little lower than your flashlight. Here in this room, I couldn't go any lower because there's this big old wall here, but yeah, there will be 2 different mirrors. One mirror will be used for the red course. You can see a red target back there. And then the other mirror will be used for the green course, and I'll have a green target over here or somewhere in the room. Now the targets can be anywhere. They can be on the walls, they can be on the ceiling, they can be on the floor, they can be under the table, they can be anywhere. But the protractor, we have a protractor underneath your mirrors, that will be under the mirror, exactly under the mirror, will not be moved. Okay, kids can't move it. The mirrors will not be able to be moved. And your light source will not be able to be moved. The kids will not be able to move that. Now, for a light source, I just use a maglev flashlight. And I don't use a laser for this part because there is the potential of the laser being flashed into some kids' eyes, and I just don't want to go there. So we're just using a maglev flashlight. The reason I use a maglev, and by the way, this is not an LED maglev, because if I understand correctly, the LED ones cannot be focused into a small beam. This is just a regular flashlight, and I focus it into as small of a concentrated beam of light as I can, okay? And then my husband just made me a stand, 3 pieces of wood that this just rests on, okay? So whatever the height of your flashlight, that is the height of one possible mirror, okay? One thing you have to be careful of though, is you are probably practicing in an elementary classroom, The tables are probably a little bit lower than what will be at the college. College tables are higher, and I have seen this happen over and over and over again, where a kid, whoever your kid is who's supposed to catch the beam of light at the very, right from the flashlight, they know exactly where to hold this mirror, and they're ready to go. And then all of a sudden, they realize they're at a table that's in a college classroom, the table's a little bit higher, and the beam of light is hitting them above their mirror. And they're not willing to move their mirror because they know this is where their mirror has to be. So, they're off to a bad start right off the beginning because they didn't realize that the table is a little higher. So be aware of that. You may want to change the height of your flashlight so that this kid doesn't get too comfortable holding it in one particular position. All right, the targets are simply a 12-inch circle. That's all there is to that, nothing fancy about that. The protractor on the floor, I just put a protractor up on a screen, up on a projector like this, and I traced it, except I put 0 degrees in the center. And I did laminate it so it'll last a while. And you'll be working in about this size of a classroom, okay? So, so the target could be, across the room on this size of a classroom. We already said I have to use my mirrors. They can bring any materials with them that they want, although I really don't have any recommendations for any materials to bring. The only thing they cannot bring is another light source. So they're going to have to figure out how to hold their mirrors. And in order for them to be steady, and I've seen lots and lots of kids hold their mirrors like this, which doesn't give them very much reflective space left to do their job. So that's a real common thing to do. And probably the most common thing that kids do is they hold it like this. And, and you're thinking, but as the event supervisor, I'm not going to say anything to them. It's the kids that have to be watching each other and making sure that everybody's okay. So the kids have to talk to each other and tell somebody that their mirror they're holding it backwards. And very, very common, we see this, where they're holding it the wrong way. So just kids are watching each other, and they're talking to each other the whole time and working as a team. You want to figure out who is your wiggliest student and who is your steadiest student. Because your steadiest student is probably going to want to be here by the flashlight, because they're going to have to hold this beam of light for a few more seconds than the last person. So your steadiest person is going to want to be by the flashlight, and your wiggliest kid is probably going to be the last person to catch the beam of light and get it to that target. So that's something else you need to figure out, is how steady are your kids. Once they figure out how to hold it, then they also need to figure out what are you going to do with your feet. You're going to spread your feet out farther, or is it better to have them together, or what's the best way to stand? Now, there will probably be furniture in the classroom, chairs and desks and tables, but they probably shouldn't practice using chairs and desks and tables because we don't know what kind of furniture is going to be in that room at that time. So they should be just dependent on themselves for holding that mirror steady. The enlarged protractor not only serves as a measurement device, but it also serves as a barrier. No part of the kid's body can be any closer to that mirror than the edge of this protractor. They have to stand off. This is an 80 centimeter radius to this circle, and that's in the rules, by the way. And they have to be at least 80 centimeters away. And the reason we did this is many years ago, before we had this rule, we would have kids that would bring their mirror right up next to it, and as an event supervisor, I couldn't tell if they were using both mirrors or not. So I had to back the kids off so I could make sure that they are using all 4 mirrors before they hit the target. That's one of the differences between part 1 and part 2. In part 1, you have to use all 4 mirrors. In part 2, you can use as many mirrors as you want. Obviously, the more mirrors you use, the better your score. They can also use the protractor to help them estimate where they're going to stand. So, for example, if I'm standing here and I'm going to reflect the beam of light to that permanent mirror, I'm pretty much looking over the 40-degree line. So knowing that second principle of light, if the angle of the light coming in is 40 degrees, it's going to reflect off of that mirror and come out at 40 degrees. So we know the other person that's going to grab that light is going to have to stand somewhere over there at the 40-degree mark. So they can use the protractor to help them figure out where they should be standing their bodies. Let's see, we said they can't move the permanent mirror, can't move the protractor, can't move the flashlight, can't move the targets. So really, that's all they're moving is their bodies holding the mirrors. Now, they will have 1 minute to talk to each other to figure out where they're going to stand. And for this one, if they use less time, we use that as a tiebreaker. So if they only use 45 seconds to figure out where to place their bodies, and they say they're ready, we'll jot down 45 seconds. And in the event of a tie, the team that planned the fastest would be declared the winner. However, in reflection relay, there is rarely a tie. So the kids shouldn't be worrying about planning quickly. They should make sure that they are planning accurately. Get your bodies in the right place so that you get a really, really good score, because ties are very, very rare in reflection relay. They do need to select a team leader. I have found in the past, if I don't have a team leader, what happens is they'll be working and one kid will say, we're ready. And the other kid will say, well, no, we're not. And, well, yes, we are ready. And I don't know what to do with the stopwatch. I don't know whether to stop or not. So what I do now is I ask the kids, who is your team leader? And that's the kid I'm going to listen to. So when that kid says we're ready, that's when I stop the stopwatch. So you may want to be prepared and have a team leader, and that's all his job is to make sure everybody agrees we're ready and let me know. Now, the stopwatch will start not when the room lights get turned out, but they'll stop when we turn the beam of light on, okay? And so let's try this. I need actually 2 volunteers. Got 1. Okay, so we're gonna try this out. We may be getting awfully close to, I don't know if you're, I have it there. Here it is. All right, so are you a wiggly person or a steady person?
I'm drinking coffee, so I'll be wiggly.
Okay, so we'll put our steady person, if you haven't had any coffee. You're gonna
No.
All right, now she's coming in. This is all part of our discussion. This is our 1 minute planning time. And actually, we wouldn't have the mirrors at this point, but yeah, they would have the mirrors at this point. They will have their mirrors at this point, and they're gonna plan out. If she's looking this way, she's going to be at about 40 degrees, okay? So that means you're going to have to stand somewhere, and this chair really wasn't here. Otherwise, they can't move that chair, but that chair really wasn't there. So she's going to want to stand somewhere around 40. Now, in this case, we're using the mirror as our second mirror. It doesn't have to be the second mirror. It can be your third mirror. I'd be real impressed if you made it your fourth mirror, but that would be really tough to do. Chances are it's going to be, the kids are going to choose this to be their second or their third mirror, okay? So then, I need to get into the red beam of light right over your head. And so I think I'm just going to stand back here. Now, I could stand a lot of different places, but I'm going to choose to stand here. So we're ready. Stopwatch goes off. We just planned for 52 seconds. They write down 52 seconds. Now, this is when, would you turn out the lights, please? Now, the stopwatch does not go on now. We're going to give your eyes a few seconds to adjust to the darkness, and the room's going to be a whole lot more dark than this. So we'll let the kids have a few seconds to get their eyes adjusted to the darkness, and then if you can turn your own flashlight on. In real life, we will do that. But so she's going to go to the permanent mirror, and you need to lift your mirror up. We're going to talk to each other, you need to take a step that way and up. Higher, 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 and over. There we go. And I can see, and talk to each other. Now, if you look at the red target back there, you can see that once it goes on, I would count 1001, 1002, 1000, stop. It has to stay on there for 3 seconds. But keep looking back there, because if this happens and we go 1001, 1002, and we get off, I stop counting. And then we'll get back on and I'll start counting again. Okay? Can we get on me? There we go. Now, even if it's only on the target just a little bit like that, we will still count it. Okay? As long as it pretty much stays on the target. So it has to stay there for 3 seconds. Okay? All right, thank you. Want to get the lights, please? So that was the red course. We just completed the red course and we stopped the watch as soon as it's up there for 3 seconds and we jot down how many seconds it took you to get the light from the flashlight on all 4 mirrors and hit the target. Your best possible score is 3 seconds. If you just happen to have everything exactly in the right spot and instantly it's on that target, you get a score of 3 seconds because you have to hold it there for 3 seconds. It has happened. I think in like 29 years I've been doing this, it has happened once or twice where they had it on instantly. So that was amazing. So 3 seconds is the best possible score you can get. Chances are you want to shoot for like 10 seconds or less, you know, to get your kids down to 10 seconds or less to be able to get up there. And on the MacombSO.org website, we have old score sheets. So you can take a look at last year and the year before and the year before, and you can see what did first place do, how many seconds did it take them. So it'll give you an idea of what you're shooting for. So that was the red course, and then I'll collect the mirrors, and we'll talk to the kids again, but now we're going to move the flashlight to a different spot in the room. We're going to leave this all the way it is, because it's just too darn hard to move. But I might use the other mirror this time. So now the mirror is a slightly different height, which doesn't look like that's a very big deal, but it's a big deal when the kid is used to holding their mirror here and all of a sudden they have to hold it up a few inches. So we may use a different mirror, and then we'll use a different target. In this case, it would be the green target. And we would do the exact same thing all over again, and they would go for the green target. So they would get a score for the red course, plus we will add on to that a score for the green course, and that would be their score for part 1. Obviously, low score is best. So let's say they got a score of 10 seconds on the red course. They got a score of 12 seconds on the green course, so they now have a score of 22 seconds. And let's say they got a -6 for part 2. We're going to subtract 6 points, so they'll now have a score of 16. Okay? So that's how this score ties into it. We take off points from part 1 based on how well they did on part 2. Okay? All right. Questions? What time are we supposed to be out of here? We were supposed to be out of here 5 minutes ago, but I don't have a problem with this if you have questions.
Should we go to tenths of a second or hundredths of a second? Stop.
We actually do it to 100th of a second. So.
On part 2, is the light source going to be on for them, or you have to set up the mirrors and then the light source will be then turned on?
For part 2, the light source is not on, but there is a head start line.
Okay.
And they set it up with the light off, and then at the end we'll turn the light on to score. Talking about scoring, you know, we all have a stopwatch for this part 1, but we have like 2-3 people scoring. So we try, you know, we take an average of everybody's score, everybody's stopwatch score. So it's not just one person, because every once in a while, somebody stopwatch, they forget they hit the button, and now you have, we've got a couple scores for backups then. So we always have more than one person scoring.
In part two, once you line up the mirrors and when you turn the light on, you cannot move the mirrors, right?
That's right.
Yeah. you cannot
Once the
touch-
5-minute timer goes off, everybody's hands off. Can't touch it anymore.
Is the light gonna be away from the permanent mirror?
This light here, yeah, it won't be shining towards the permanent mirror, this light.
For part two, will they be given any warning, like they have a minute left to plan, or they
Part
just,
two.
or will just be given the 5 minutes, and when you say stop, they?
Yeah, that would be a good thing.
We've done that in the past with the paper and pencil thing. We
Yeah.
usually tell them
Yeah,
30 minutes left.
30 seconds.
We'll tell them.
And this will actually be easier because they'll all be at the same point.
Yeah.
Part one, is there a distance you have to be from the flashlight, or you?
No, just as long as you're not moving the flashlight, there's no particular distance to be held away from the flashlight as long as you're not moving the flashlight. And we do have some kids that will get right up on the flashlight and they will be right there, but it's kind of hard to, get it going someplace else. So, they may not want to be right up against the flashlight. They may want to be backed up a little bit so that they can turn the light.
When you turn in the light on, are the kids be able to talk to each other like?
Oh, absolutely.
Or-
Yep, once we turn the light on, if they still need to move about or adjust their body or talk to each other, absolutely, they should make any changes. Here, once we turn the light on, they're done, they can't do anything more. But here, when we turn the light on, they can still make adjustments.
But for the first part, the minutes count, like the seconds count, but for the second one, it doesn't. Like the time-
Right. That's right.
The important time, like, the first.
Okay? Well, again, we've got the best of them.